this episode is for new dads and people who are about to become dads. Crazy, right? That's okay. It's supposed to be. And guess what? You're not going to be ready no matter what. However, I'm going to give you 10 things that I wish I would have known prior to becoming a dad. Now, this list is not going to be in any particular order. I'm going to go 10 to 1, but I will say that my number one thing is my number one thing. That's the only thing I've ranked. Everything else is anywhere in between. Let's get started.
Number 10.
Your kids are going to act like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Before I had my boys, and I'd see other kids behaving badly, I would think to myself, our kids are never going to act like that. Ha! Yeah, right. They are absolutely going to act like that. Let me set the scene. You're at a restaurant. You're maybe with some family or friends, and you see somebody at another table, or even somebody in your group bring their kids with them. And their kids decide to show out. Start banging silverware, throwing plates, knocking over their drinks, screaming, crying, whining. And the thought might occur to you, when I have kids, or if I have kids, they are never going to act like that. I wish that were true, but it's not, and it can be very, very frustrating. And maybe you can rein them in and calm them down a little bit. Probably not. But there's going to be times you might just have to tap out and say, we're going to try this another time, like in 18 years.
Number 9.
Another thing I wish I would have known prior to becoming a parent is to make myself and my partner and my time a priority. Probably the most difficult one because as parents, we're all in different situations. However, I do feel like there is enough time in a day to make some for yourself, and it's so important that you do. Just yesterday, I was able to go do 18 holes with my friend. It was awesome. It's so important to keep that balance. If you're too far this way, you're going to fall off the edge. If you're too far this way, you're not paying enough attention to your kids. But it is important to find that balance and find that time for yourself so that you can recharge your batteries.
Start taking care of y'all mentals, y'all bodies, and y'all chicken.
It's also important to give time to your partner as well, and to ensure that your partner's giving time to you. Again, this is very, very difficult to do. You want to try to find a way to go on a date with your significant other. Go on a date with other people.
Let me finish.
If you're a single parent, you want to try to find a way to give that time to each other. Because again, it not only balances you out, but it also balances the family life out too. Which brings me to my next point.
Number 8.
Have an Independence Day.
Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
Now what that is when everybody in the family does their own thing. That can be tough, especially at first. My son Benson is attached to my hip, and I love it, but there are times when I'm like, find something to do for yourself. Maybe it's play in your toy room. Maybe it's go read a book. Maybe it's wrestle with your brother. Whatever it is, you need to go and do it by yourself. Now, here's always the response I would get, especially from my oldest. It's boring. Good. Boredom breeds creativity, and creativity breeds growth. I am not an expert, okay? These are just things that I've done that seems to have worked, and I wish I would have known 5 years ago. They started playing together much better. Instead of competing for mom and dad's time, they were sharing their time together and figuring out how to make that work, which was super cool to see. Also, they started creating these scenarios and scenes with their toys. This is where I'm talking about it breeds that creativity. Again, so cool to see. Now they're kind of being their own people, and it also allows you time to do things that you want to do. Get caught up on some cleaning, play a video game, read that book that's been sitting on your bed table for months now, collecting dust. Dust your bed table. Speaking of books.
Number 7.
Inner Child Recovery Work with Radical Self-Compassion by Don Barlow. Full disclosure, guys, I started seeing a therapist. Which, by the way, this is going to be a 2-for-1 here. If you feel like you need help, please get it, okay? Set your ego aside. Set your pride aside. If you think you can take care of it all yourself, try it. If it doesn't work, get help. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over again expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity. One thing I wish I would have known prior to becoming a dad was to get back in touch with my inner child. Because if I get back in touch with my inner child, then it might help me relate to my kids a little bit better. I haven't finished this book, but what I have read so far and ways to kind of get back in touch with your inner child is to revisit those relics from your childhood. Things like movies you used to watch, toys you used to play with, places you used to go. Revisit them. Hopefully your parents maybe have kept some of those old toys that you have because it's cool to play with them with your kids. I used to have a big Star Wars collection. My mom kept some of it. Thanks, Mom. My sons and I have been able to play with those toys together, and it's just brought back so many memories. It brought back the memory of the Christmas that that Santa had gotten them for me. That was close. And to be able to share that with my kid now, which now my oldest Benson is super into Star Wars, and it's awesome. Getting back in touch with that inner child might really help, especially before you become a dad, or if you're in the infancy of your fatherhood. It might really help you to make a connection with your kids, which is a good segue to my next thing I wish I would have known prior to becoming a dad.
Number 6.
Be interested in what your kids are interested in. And if you don't have an interest in them, or if you can't connect, find out why they like it. It might be a good way for you to grow as a person. This is kind of how I got into anime. When you express that interest in what your kids are interested in, you're gonna make even more of a stronger connection. And it's going to make them feel like they're important to you. You can ask them questions like, what makes you like that toy? What's your favorite part of that show that you really like? Things like that engage in conversation with your kids will make a strong connection. And then you'll end up watching Bluey with them. Bluey's amazing, by the way. If you don't watch Bluey, watch Bluey. But things like shows, like toys, games, things that they like to do, questions that they have. Find out why they're curious about it. It might be cool to uncover these different things that you might have forgotten or you might learn together. It's awesome.
Number 5.
Another thing that I wish I would have known is to celebrate the little milestones as if they're huge. Because they are huge. They might seem little to you, but they are huge to them. So you want to celebrate it adequately. When they open the door, celebrate it. When they go to the bathroom by themselves for the first time, that's huge. Celebrate it. Make sure they know that they did good. This was one thing that I had a lot of trouble with, especially at first. And it took some people telling me like, hey.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home?
Take a step back, smell the roses. And it might not have been that I didn't think what they were doing was important. It was that I was oversaturated and had too much going on to realize what they were doing was massive. So I had to reprioritize myself, and it really helped me to understand that, hey, we need to be able to show them what they just did was good. That way they can understand to do it more. Which leads me to my next point.
Number 4.
Go easy on yourself. You aren't perfect, and your kids will not be either. Now, this may be a me problem because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist.
We will be perfect.
However, it's unfair to myself to have that expectation. And it's even more unfair to levy that expectation on your kids. And I did that. Didn't work out too well. So I have to constantly remind myself it's okay to not be perfect.
Number 3.
Another thing that I wish I would have known before becoming a dad was that it's okay to apologize to your kids. In fact, it's the right thing to do. When you start a family, this life is new to everyone. And up to this point in my fatherhood, I've made so many mistakes. A lot of mistakes. And I'm gonna make a ton more. And what I've noticed is my kids are much more considerate to others. They are more helpful, they are sympathetic, and I think it's really helped them kind of engage their surroundings and their environment and other people maybe a little bit better, being comfortable in that space. Now, ask yourself, when you were wronged by somebody or you felt wronged by somebody, and that person didn't really care enough to apologize to you for it, how did it make you feel like you were looked at in that person's eyes? Probably pretty insignificantly, right? I wouldn't want my kids to feel that way. And I'm pretty sure I have at some point. But I have to, again, constantly remind myself, it's okay to apologize to our kids when we've done something wrong. No matter what, no matter how many times.
Number 2.
Don't worry about the things that you can't do now after having kids, and start getting excited about the things you can do that you couldn't do before. A lot of times I hear, and I've probably felt this before because I had kids a little bit later in life, I don't want to have to stop doing the things that I like to do. And after I have kids, that time's going to be taken away from me. And it might. However, maybe look at it from a different perspective and start thinking about, all the things that you can do that you couldn't do before. Like taking the kids to the movies for the first time. Just recently, I took Benson to see the Mario movie. Go see the Mario movie. And we had such a fun time, and it made me feel like I was at the movies for the first time too, which was super awesome. It's almost like you get to watch this new experience all over again, but through their eyes, kind of vicariously relive that through them and be there with them to guide it. It's cool. It's awesome. And yeah, maybe you can't go out until 3 a.m. anymore, but now you can go and take your kids to the park and watch them just explore and play and do these crazy things with them. I saved this last one for number 1, and I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the video, so I hope you stuck around to kind of see what I meant. Now, you might be asking yourself, am I ready? You might be asking yourself, can I do this? And to be honest with you, man, you're probably not ready, but you can do this. Which is why I wish I would have known this before becoming a parent.
Number 1.
Try not to have expectations. Expectations can fall short or just be different than what you expected it to be, which can be disappointing. But what happened to me was my disappointment in the differences of what I expected fatherhood to be shielded me from seeing what it actually was, what was right in front of me, which was 2 beautiful and healthy little boys who were missing out on the dad that they deserved. Your kids are going to be their own people. They're going to discover things in their own ways, and they're going to do things how they feel like they should do them, and you're there to guide them along. They might go in different directions than what you think that they should. And sometimes you do have to reel that in, but there are times when you don't. Maybe you should allow them to explore these different ways that you never even thought about. What I had to do was I had to unburden myself of the disappointment and unburden myself of the expectations that I was having on being a dad. And I had to let go of the guilt for those feelings too. Because there's times when being a dad is like driving a car. And there's times when being a dad is like riding a roller coaster. But you don't always have to be in control. Sometimes you just got to let go and enjoy the ride. So about to be dads and new dads, I hope this helped, man. If you watched it and got nothing from it, that's okay. But if you did and you liked it and you'd like to see more, I did post a video on a pretty heavy subject of dealing with death, and you can check that out here, where I talk about how I dealt with my kids' first experience with death. And dads out there, gay dads, straight dads, dads who are in relationships, dads who are married, dads who used to be moms who are now dads, keep your head up, you're doing great, and stay dedicated. Leave your brother alone!